Hi everyone, welcome back to another Paper Pioneer Live. I'm Old Emo Dave, and I'm here with Jay. How are you doing, Jay?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Dave?
Mate, doing well. It's been a while, but we are now back on the channel with plenty of videos to go through, and we're starting off with Pioneer's current top tier meta mirror, Rakdos Sack versus Rakdos Sack. What do we say here, Jay? How'd you win the mirror?
Well, I've never actually seen a Rakdos sack mirror, but I reckon it's going to be interesting. I think the coolest card in the mirror is Mayhem Devil. It doesn't always come up, but Mayhem Devil does work for both sides. So, whenever whenever your opponent sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil also gets a trigger. So it means that if both sides can get a Mayhem Devil out, or one can get a Mayhem Devil out, there will be a lot more triggers than there usually are.
Yeah, and I think who gets control over the graveyard, right? I think that's probably another big thing here. Both players have tech cards kicking around in sideboards and main cards. If one styles each other with resources and the other basically establishes a board, yeah, it's GG to one side. But pre-game appears to be a little bit of a spinach. Like to see the care being taken there by the players on the right. Don't want to be disrupted by spilled drink around you. It's interesting to see. Despite the mirror, and we've called it a mirror, it ain't a mirror because we've only got one Gigantha in play.
Yeah, I agree. If one of them manages to get the graveyard hate down in the post board games and the other one doesn't, it does drastically change the game up.
Yeah, on
But
the left. Yeah, on the left they're just playing Unlicensed Hearse, so like that's their graveyard hate. And as we see, here comes the cat, who is currently probably one of the most expensive cats in the format. Behind Kemba is pretty much this little uncommon from Throne of Eldraine.
I think Brimaz is quite expensive, isn't it?
Yes. Oh yeah. Sorry, Brimaz, not Kemba. Kemba's actually probably about 20p.
Yeah, yeah. Cat, honestly, best turn one you can have. And we see both players start with a cat, which is pretty fantastic for both sides. Now it's basically whoever can get out the oven first, usually.
I would say so. And a very interesting mirror when you're not playing on arena, to keeping triggers up to date. Like you really have to be focused in.
Agreed. Offering the trade early is very interesting because it's very hard to say who it benefits, the player on the play or the player on the draw. And
Okay.
it looks like the Rakdos sack player on the right called the bluff and says that no, I you are just going to sacrifice it anyway. I'm going to make sure that you don't get the extra life taken.
That may like telegraph that they have an oven, that they were happy to let it die as well.
True,
But
but the oven can't bring the cat back without the food. So
true.
just having the oven is not always enough. And here we see a cat and another and an oven. This
Okay.
is fantastic for the right player.
Yeah, I think the odds just swung ever in the favor of our player on the right. Two cats and an oven into an empty board. Unless there's essentially a mayhem devil here, I don't even see the way back.
Yeah, I think they're gonna probably play a.
Oh,
So
they got
they
an
do
oven.
have an oven. And a
And
Croxer.
Croxer.
Oh, interesting. They can sacrifice a Croxer to the oven to get a food and then bring their cat back.
Yeah, interested if they notify that. Yes, they are. Because that's very heads up play there.
Yeah, what Croxer is really good in this deck because it usually, is a sacrifice that you can use with Village Rites, Deadly Dispute, and Witch's Oven. So that's why it is such a good card in this deck.
Yeah, we're seeing an uptick of Croxer seeing play as well in a lot of Rakdos mid-range and sack decks because like if you stick a 6/6, like it's just great.
Yeah, and the discard is very difficult to deal with, just making them discard on ETB and attack.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so could still be kind of grindy. I think it's now turned into Who Sticks the Mayhem Devil, and there it is. So it's about timing, triggers, keeping yourself alive, ticking your food up. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's the player on the left is almost dead. Just Mayhem Devil, the cat, the oven. It's just going to deal so much damage every turn. It's going to be very difficult Yeah, and here we see an unlicensed disintegration. So it destroys target creature, and if you control an artifact, it deals 3 damage to that creature's controller.
Okay, cool. So they're essentially looping it.
Yeah, I think they're deciding whether to They want to sacrifice the devil in response to get a food for it, but they want to get the extra triggers from the Mayhem Devil by sacking the food first. I mean, they can attack for 2 this turn, plus the oven is another 1 damage. Their opponent's effectively at 9. It's getting a bit dire for the player on the left in terms of their chances and their outs,
Oh,
especially with this second Mayhem Devil.
this is the moment. This is the moment when you're playing on arena. You don't want to see just the knowledge that you just are not gonna get. However much you kill a permanent, the permanent's coming back. It's also pinging you for 1. Um,
Yeah,
I call game 2 here before I even start. But these guys are trying to don't have as much information as we do, I suppose, at this point.
yeah. I mean, it looks like they have another unlicensed disintegration in their hand. I'm not sure. They just were able to gain a life off the control Cauldron Familiar. Their foods, if needed to, can be sacked to make the game go a little bit longer. So they've got that going for them. So they might be able to elongate the game, but I can't see them coming back in it really, just because of the amount of pressure on their life total and the board state that the player on the right has amassed.
Sure. There's an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, which interestingly is sometimes a little bit like serves well for both players, so is not seen a cut in many lists anymore. But this might also bring to an argument of why Shouldred's in the list as well, because in this sort of grindier matchup, Shouldred's take gain 2 can also help. Especially if they're gonna, but well I don't think they saw the Bankbuster. We've seen a Reckless Bankbuster, but that's another good combination, Bankbuster and Shouldred. And
Yeah,
also, it's
but
an artifact you can do.
Bankbuster is good here because it's a 4/4 and it can block anything that the other player tries to throw. But they don't have anything to crew it with. I think they're really behind in terms of, I bet they wish instead of a Croxer they had a Blood Tithe Harvester, for instance. They really needed to get some sort of board presence. And 3 creatures versus no creatures is very hard.
Yeah, that's like the Rakdos sack. Although like the games go long, weirdly, if you lose tempo, you don't you do quickly fall out of the game. And we haven't seen Blood Tide Harvesters on the play on the left, but I hope they're in the list, and if they're not, I suggest it'd be a real definite pickup for them to
Yeah, Blood Tithe
draw.
Harvester is so good. Just above rate creature, makes an artifact, very relevant in this deck, and can sack it to kill a creature. Here we see another unlicensed disintegration on the Mayhem Devil, but the Rakdos sack player on the right is, getting all of his triggers in, making sure that they can ping the opponent for the maximum amount possible. They're very, very just close to winning at this point. If they had a Den of the Bugbear or Hive back there, they would potentially just be winning this turn.
Yeah, I'd be like even to say that this is a case of um taking your own poison, right? You're as the Rakdos sack player, you've got one game plan or one main game plan, which is hang around and drain life. And because the time has been afforded to the player on the right to establish and to continue their loops, they're just going to win if there's nothing like essentially proactive going to be done on the left other than themselves just stick one creature, hope for that. What's this?
So this I've played with this as the standard. I don't think it's a very meta card. It's called Voldaran Bloodcaster, and whenever another creature dies or it dies, you create a blood token.
Oh, so another sackable outlet, I suppose.
Yeah, and then I think once you have 5 blood tokens, you can transform it. And I think on the other side, it's a 3/3 flyer, and it can make blood tokens into 2/2 flying bats.
Oh, okay. So
Oh, and they're
as
playing the Unoccult Anvil.
okay, so a bit of spicy synergy, and you do love to see it because we're so still incredibly early in like the pioneer world, and the innovation is still out there because there's plenty of cards being released that can improve these things. So he's flipping his so he's Fair play efficiencies has the double face tokens for this stuff, and there's the construct from the Oni cult. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
this is
did
game. This is game, right? There's no way he's got a board wipe in game one.
yeah, I don't think Rakdos Sack ever brings in board wipes. I could be wrong, maybe a Meat Hook Massacre, but I just it this is such a difficult game, and I think the player on the left was on the play as well. So it just they've played something every single turn nearly. So it's just so surprising that they've gotten this far behind.
Well,
I really
they
I
got far
re
behind because the God curve, right? Like the God
I,
curve.
I, but I know. I just feel like their turn where they deadly disputed and their turn where they're croxed, it didn't actually advance their board state in any way.
and
And
it,
they just didn't have the time to be able to Croxer and Deadly Dispute and do all of these things. I think they would have much rather just advanced their board state with creatures.
yeah, and that's sort of like testament to this deck's essential low curve and everything being playable within sort of the first 2 or 3 turns. That um is very easy to make a misstep, and it's as a small misstep as it was, like that could have just playing that cat, then playing Croxer instead of Deadly Disputed, they would have naturally drawn into their oven potentially one turn later. Would have just maybe forced an extra decision from our player on the right, and this would be in a bit of a different spot. They are back up to 7, but they are tapped out, and I believe there's
The
one,
the
two, three.
the the
Yeah, they
Mayhem
would.
Devil is good, but here it doesn't help that much just because the player on the right is not at a low enough life total that the Mayhem Devil can kill them, and they don't have any creatures that they care about that much, and that they can't just sack in response to a Mayhem Devil ping.
Okay, and the only cult is gonna sack twice. The oven will also sack.
So it looks like they might want to do something in response. So with
Mm.
2 anvils, that's 2 anvil triggers, that's 2 life. And then they've got 2 cats, that's 2 more life. And they've got 2 food stockpiled, so that's 2 more life. So I think they can deal 6 damage this turn. Oh, and they can also attack with the 3 creatures, which would deal 1 more damage. So I think they have lethal on the board. I could be wrong.
I think so. It depends. There is 2 mana up on the left hand side, so they could potentially have some way to deal with this.
True. Also, they could potentially, before attacks, sack their cat and force the opponent to like ping one of the opponent's cats
Yeah,
and make it so that that cat can't attack, and then that's 1 less extra damage that they get.
yeah, and fair play that there's the timing thoughts here because there's a lot to think about. He's pinging the Mayhem Devil.
No, 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 no. He sacrificed the cat and he's telling his opponent, "Where do you want to ping?"
Oh, where do you want? Oh, because their Mayhem Devil's trigger is on the stack first. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They don't have a Mayhem Devil.
Oh, yeah. So I mean the play on the left's Mayhem Devil's
Yeah.
trigger. Yeah.
I'm not sure where that Mayhem Devil trigger pointed, to be honest. Or maybe they're just deciding and they're just. I'm not too sure.
I I think
Oh,
they're
there
just
there
now
we go. I
talking
think
about it.
one went at them.
Yeah. One went at them, one went at the cat.
Okay, okay, yeah. And then they made two more artifact tokens
Mm-hmm.
from the Onicot anvils. I'm not sure why they've put their playmat on their graveyard.
I have no idea. The obscuring of information. Um, Maybe they're still cleaning up their mess from earlier.
Yeah, I would like to say that the player on the right should learn from the player on the left. They have a beautifully presented, board state with wonderful land separation, all of their cards in one line, their artifacts to one side and their creatures to the other. A very beautiful board setup, very easy and visually appealing to see compared to the player on the right.
It's just a classic Boomer versus Zoomer scenario here, right? Like, I've played Magic for years. I'll do what I want. Versus, I've played Magic on Arena. I know how to keep things tidy.
Well, you should be able to keep things tidy without arena. I'm not sure about having the graveyard upside down though. That is a bit odd. Maybe it's
Eh,
just for the opponent's benefit.
Oh yeah, I see that. Or maybe ours on camera. That's this. It's possible. We just for everyone at home, we don't put any expectations on layout other than try and stay within the grey map because that keeps you on camera, and make sure we got the scores on a little phone at the top. That's the only thing we ask of them, because it is F&M after all. It's everyone having their best time here in Firestone Games in Cardiff.
Yeah. At, at least no one tries to play with the creatures behind their lands.
That's
I
true. That's true. We
I
have
can't
outlawed
believe
that.
that. Yeah, I can't believe Wizards of the Coast allowed that for so many years before finally going, no, 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 not okay anymore.
Yes, although my son will try it now and again at home just to trigger me, but he knows where his loyalties lie when it comes to Pocket Money Day, so he has stopped that now.
Exactly. It's just so important to be able to see your opponent's, battlefield much more than to be able to see your opponent's lands.
Absolutely. Well, in this state, we're talking through the Oni cult triggers, the life gain, which came from the food that got sacked.
Yeah.
Now the construct's getting sacked to the anvil. That's going to drop them game one, lose. So they lost
Yeah,
them
and
game
then I
one.
think they might be talking about Mayhem Devil's trigger. It's all very complicated. Lots of triggers flying back and forth. Overall, I'm not really sure how the player on the left gets back into it. They have a chance. It's still possible, but the way the life totals are going, they just seem to be swinging ever so slightly in the player on the right's favor.
I think what we need to do for those still watching the video is if you want to actually tell us line by line any missed triggers during this video, those who get the most, we'll give you an arena code card. We'll if the we'll ask the players who when this gets posted to take a look themselves, tell us in private, and yeah, we'll ship arena code cards to those who are close. But a
That
Baldur's brass attack, I love this.
I just think though there's no danger of an attack back. Oh, I guess like two Cauldron of Familiars can be brought back at the end of turn. But I mean you've got to attack. This is a attack for 4 damage, and the Cauldron Familiar can be sort of blinked, and it can still block. It's going to bring the opponent down to 11, and that means that they're going to have to think about every single thing they sacrifice for the rest of the game because if they sacrifice 11 permanents, which is very easy for Rakdos to do, they will just lose the game because of
Yeah.
Mayhem Devil's triggers.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I've seen the Devils just stack and stack and stack, and the Fable trigger stacks. You can die from some crazy high scenarios.
Agreed.
So sacking should be 4 blocks. I guess is the where they're declaring this one.
Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong.
But if they say before blocks, this one just dies and they sack another food and then block. Maybe I. But then they could create constructs to bring back the cats. I think that's what he's thinking about. Is like, is it worth still blocking? Do I need to block this 3 damage? Which I think shortly they should make the decision. Absolutely no reason at all. I'll take the 3.
Yeah.
And here comes
Oh, this
Shoulder.
is a Shouldred.
Yeah.
So that's a nice card. It will gain them some life eventually if they can survive one more turn. It'll sort of slowly drain the opponent. This is sort of just starting to swing in the left player's,
The,
direction. They've got 2 blockers. They're able to ping a lot of things. It's just whether they can take 7 damage. I don't think they have any ways to gain life. Apart from, Cauldron Familiar. If they can survive 8 damage this turn, they might be able to sort of bring themselves back into it.
I wonder what that is at the top. They are essentially both top decking. I feel like that may be a fatal push in hand on the left. Kept 1 mana up.
Maybe.
He's holding it up like he can do something with it. And a Furnace Reigns?
So surely that's just game. So Furnace
That's
Reigns, you take
game.
control, don't you? So with the
Yes.
Mayhem Devil, that's double triggers on their Onicon and on their Cauldron Familiar. I believe that's just going to be a game, and that is such a mirror breaker of a card.
Absolutely. Reminds me of Kari Zev's expertise in good old Ataka Red aggro, where you play three mana, you take control of a permanent, you play a permanent for 2 mana or less from your hand. So you essentially grab their card, you play Ataka's command, you hit them back for goodness knows how much, like absolute backbreaker. I think they're just thinking, how do they get out of this?
Yeah, I don't think they can. I'm not really too sure. If they do have a Fatal Push in their hand, they could bring the cat back and then Fatal Push their own Mayhem Devil. But I'm not sure if they do have a Fatal Push.
Yeah, I think that's probably tells us they don't, right?
Yeah, because I think that would have been a pretty snap decision. Because if they get them Mayhem Devil, they're just gonna have to block it with Shieldred anyway, and it's gonna die anyway. So you'd rather it dies. Also, Furnace Reigns.
Well,
Does it make a treasure? Is that what it does? I can't remember.
I believe so. I believe it's obviously a new edition from Phyrexia, or will be one. People have been taking this one out. They've been taking this one out for Claim the Firstborn,
Yeah.
because of essentially situations like this where they maybe need to get a shoulder as well.
So it looks like they're bringing the cat back, getting the extra trigger of Mayhem Devil. Oh, and it does go over. And by the way, Furnace Reigns does read whenever this creature deals damage to a battle or player, create a treasure token.
Yeah, so if they let the damage through, they'll get a
Yeah.
treasure, which they'll be able to sack and.
It is the old typical act of treason with set mechanic, as there is in every set. There's always an act of treason like this with the set mechanic.
Yes, there was. I remember like the Innistrad ones where they were sort of like
Yeah, made of
pack
blood or something.
pack betrayal in Midnight
Yeah,
Hunt. And
and yeah, they've printed so many.
always feels like such a god card when you're playing limited, and never really comes up that much in standard or pioneer. But yeah, getting the work done here. This is the triggers going off, and gonna be going to game 2, I think.
Yeah, so this is just game.
Yeah,
I think.
that's game 2. Definitely game 2 there, and Ray's going into sideboarding, and just graveyard hate, I suppose, is the real breaker. Graveyard hate and creature stealing is what you're looking to do in the post sideboard
Yeah,
games.
for sure. Mayhem Devil is your best card in this matchup, and Claim the Firstborn, taking a Mayhem Devil, fantastic card. So yeah, you're right. Creature stealing is what you want. Maybe even removal, just because an opponent's Mayhem Devil, if you cannot deal with it, you have lost the match. And then, like you said, exile effects or graveyard hate to get rid of the cats.
Yeah, a one of Me Took Massacre wouldn't go amiss here, but yeah, quite an expensive card for an F&M sideboard. But if they are main decking these and playing in qualifiers, it definitely would break a mirror.
Agreed, agreed.
Getting
Mayhem
them.
Devil, really good card. Just making it so that you're gaining life every time your creatures die, making them lose life every time their creatures die. I think
Yeah,
I said
so
that the wrong way around.
yeah. And
But
it was also Me Hook Massacre as well, not Mayhem Hill.
sorry, yeah, I said everything wrong there. But it is such a fantastic card, and I can see why it would just completely break the mirror. And you probably wouldn't even wait to play it and get value out of it. You would just drop it down on turn 2.
Yeah, and just be like, I'm gonna +1 you every time this thing happens. I'm gonna have +1 in my value. So whether it's like not losing one or gaining or gaining one extra. So is there and we just cannot overlook the possibility of ley line of the void.
Yep.
Like I'd even potentially a game up as the play on the right is who we know has the has 3 lane out of the voids. I'd mulligan for it. I think I'd even maybe go to 5 looking for it if I was oh, doesn't even need to go to 5. Just is that Russian? I
I think
believe
so.
I believe that is a Russian lane out of the void. So
Ooh, oh, looks like there's some sort of implications here. Technically, the player on the right is okay because although they left the Gigantha out, it's a requirement that you declare it.
yes, correct. So
So,
it's technically
so technically it's okay, but it's also not okay because